Welcome to Margin Business Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Today we got Shane Oglow, the co-owner of the public relations media company PR Reach. Welcome, Shane. Before I forget, hit the subscribe button now. Thank you. Enjoy. Shane, happy to have you here today on Margin Business Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. First of all, where did you grow up, where you were born, and what is the early life of Shane Oglow?
I'm Canadian. I was born and grew up in Canada. I grew up in the West, the good part of Canada, so with the mountains and the ski hills and the lakes, and it was good. You know, it was kind of an idyllic lifestyle in a lot of ways. I grew up in a really small town and very safe, and spent all my time fishing in the river, the creek, or making forts in the woods. And yeah, it was pretty great. But I had an itch early. I realized I didn't fit in that well sometimes, like at school and stuff. I had a different vision for what I wanted my life to be. And hey, fair enough. When you're kids, I don't know what you want half the time. You've got this kind of hazy vision of what the future should look like. At least it was for me. But, I didn't want to be stuck. I shouldn't say stuck, because some people love being in a small town. There's nothing wrong with it, but I felt I was going to be stuck there. I didn't want to work at the local mill forever, retire, have 2.5 kids, a boat, a motorhome, and live that life. And again, there's nothing wrong with that life. Just wasn't for me. I remember actually I had a job before I went to university at the local smelter. So they smelted lead, zinc, gold, silver. It's a big factory.
Mines, yeah?
It's just a smelting. So the material was brought from mines to this place. It's been there for, practically 100 years, but it's kind of a dream job, right? Because this is, maybe 1989, around there. Gosh, I'm old. At that time, I think I started off, I was making $17 an hour or $20 an hour or whatever it was, but that was big money, right? I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I worked there for maybe a year and a half. But by the end, even though I had a really cushy job, I was almost in tears some days. I didn't know why. I was like, well, am I lazy? Am I depressed? Or what the hell is wrong with me? I just didn't want to be stuck, man. I had to go free. So I quit. And very few people quit a job like that, but I quit. And then I went off to school on the coast in Vancouver. And things changed from there. But I just had a different vision. I really wanted to be a spy. That was my whole thing. I wanted to be a spy. It almost came true, which we'll get into later. But that was I just wanted to be away from a small town and be a spy.
Very child age already? Or
I think by the time I was 11, 12, 13, I was like,
you got inspired by all books or or is it really something that you were already? Where did this come from? I mean, where? Because it's interesting,
I don't know. Maybe watching too many James Bond movies. I don't know. But I used to read a lot as a kid too, and I wanted this life of adventure, traveling and seeing things, and I suppose a lot of kids are like that.
Sure. That's why as well with the snow. When you grow up in the town, what you're describing, what I see is like wooden cabins, trees, snow. In the summer, you have the river, which is still cold, although it's summer. This is what I'm seeing. What you're describing, actually. It's
I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, it wasn't that rural. The town, where I grew up had a few hundred people, but the town adjacent to us had 8,000 or 9,000 people or something like that. So there were stores, and it's not like we had to hunt for our food every day. We had television, but it was still pretty rural. compared to what most kids nowadays are used to growing up in.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, to grow up like this. I didn't have the chance to grow up like this, but now in my time now, when I have the possibility to travel, I am choosing to live like this, like for 3 months, to really go in the wild and, and just see these things, what you're describing, it's the only problem is the internet, it's very unstable in these environments. So yeah, that's the only downside of it. So I guess by that time there was still no internet. So
there was no internet back then. No. So I mean, it's funny because if you think about when you grew up back then, like telephone numbers, I still remember everyone's telephone number because it was in your head. Right now, I don't even know my own. Well, actually, I do know my own, but I don't know anybody else's telephone number. No. It's kind of strange. I wonder if that's affecting us. And of course, back then, there's so few people, like, someone, their number was 5, because there wasn't so many people, right? But as you grew up, the numbers got bigger and bigger.
Yes.
But I still remember, okay, 5 is a bit of a joke, but
kind of a selective memory, so yeah, now we don't need it anymore. That's why the brain just selects
Yeah, but it's, but if you think about my daughters, if she's only 5, but let's say she's got her own cell phone, and a few years down the road, for in case she has to call me, she's out with her friends.
Yes.
If she drops it or runs out of battery,
that's it.
How's she gonna call me, right? You need to know the number.
Yeah,
you need to know the number. Times they're changing. Yeah.
I was never in this situation, luckily, because but it's true. If I lose my telephone, that's it. I'm going to scream. It's
that's true. Right.
What can I do? I cannot call anyone. Right. I need to go to them. And
I wouldn't give up that childhood experience for anything. It's great, and I realize that everyone's experience is different. Hey, you grew up in a big city. Well, that's your experience. It's just different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different. And I'm just trying to create. I've got 5 kids, right? So I'm trying to create a good experience for them growing up. It'll be their own unique. I'm not trying to emulate what I went through, because that's not really possible anymore to do that the way I did it. Well, I shouldn't say that. We could move to a remote place in Canada, for example. I'm in Europe now, but I could, we could be very rural, but it's still going to be a little bit different to try and emulate that experience. But I don't think that's my job. I think they need to have their own experience in a safe environment that I provide for them, whatever that environment is. And it's just different.
Yeah. So, how did you move on from there? Because when did you realize that you need to move out, or when did this move happened? Because it's quite hard as well. You have all your family there, everything, and suddenly you go out of this safe environment into the world. How did you manage to do that? This is the first step out of the comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, I went to school on the coast in Vancouver, and then I ended up getting, work there, and just kind of lived on the coast. But, I think my inspiration to a large degree came from an aunt and uncle that I had. And when I was about, maybe 14, 15, something like that, they left Canada and traveled through Europe for a couple of years. They lived in France, went to university there for 6 months or a year. They lived in Israel for 6 months. They rode their bikes all over Europe, and that was very inspiring for me. And I've always they're kind of like second parents to me. They're very, very dear to me, and we're very close. And that was a really nice inspiration, just to see adults just pick up and say, "No, we're out of here. We'll see you in a couple of years." That wasn't normal for other kids, parents to do, right? So that was pretty cool. But when I was on the coast, after I finished school, I took an international trade program. I actually never finished it because I got bored. But which is to my discredit, I didn't have enough, maybe that stick-to-itiveness at that age. I was just too distracted by other stuff too easily, right? I think I was pretty immature as a young guy. But hey, That's the way she goes. But one thing led to another, and I ended up getting a job as well. I had a lame job for a little while where I was at a call center for a collections agency, right? Collecting on bad debts. And this was, maybe like 92, 91, something like that. It was early 90s. And I met a guy, Dan, a really, really cool guy. I really liked him. And he was working there just temporarily because he had been accepted into the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And he was just waiting to get called up to go off to basic training. And I became friends with Dan. And Dan had done his 5 years in the French Foreign Legion. And I was like, oh man, that's so cool. And I didn't know much about it. So we heard all the stories, like, that's it. I'm going to join the Foreign Legion. Oh, but I wasn't quite ready to go at the time. But right from that job, I ended up applying and I got a job as a private investigator. And I got this job with this company called Major Investigations. It doesn't exist anymore. The owner's name was Bernie Majors, and he was an ex-Scotland Yard detective. And he was a wonderful, wonderful, caring man. I really loved Bernie. And he was probably in his 70s at that time. So he was pretty much retired. He did little things here and there, but he had an office manager who ran the office. And they brought me on under the agreement that I would go undercover with a shipping company to try and figure out where a product was going missing with the shipping company. So I agreed because it sounded pretty cool. And it was. And I worked there for maybe about a year and a half. And I started to get a little bit, it was great. It was wonderful. It wasn't quite as glamorous as I thought it would be, like the movies. I mean, sometimes there's pretty cool stuff, but there was a lot of research and kind of more boring stuff, right? But it was still okay. It was cool. It was better than the other job I had. But I always had this French Foreign Legion in the back of my head, and I still plan to do that. And a lot of interesting things happened over that period of time. And one of them was I decided I would try and join the Canadian, it's called the CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. It's the spy agency in Canada.
It was like 94 or something like that? Or?
Yeah, a little bit earlier, maybe like 92, something like that. Yeah. 93. Yeah, somewhere around there, early 90s. I'm terrible with dates.
That's very unusual for if you work with the agencies, normally every day.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good with dates with other things, but with my own life, I seem to forget. I don't know why. Yeah, and I'm a big history buff too. Like I'm really big on history, so I remember a lot of dates in history. But anyways, so I went through the procedure to join CSIS, and I ended up going for a series of interviews. But I remember the last interview I went, they rejected me. And they rejected me because I hadn't finished my bachelor's degree. So I was really pissed off.
The trading, what you mentioned.
Not happy at all. What's that?
Trading school, what you mentioned before, right? You didn't finish. You said that.
Yeah, the international. Yeah. Basically, they require a bachelor's degree, but I quit before I got the degree. And I was like, well, I considered, maybe I should it won't take me long to get that. Should I do it? But I was, my nose was out of joint. I was annoyed. Whatever. It ended up being the best thing ever. I'm glad I didn't, because talk about, a boring job with the research. I mean, it's the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, not a lot of exciting things happen. So I decided, screw it. I'm going to join the Foreign Legion. So I went back to the office and I told them, I said, that's it. I'm leaving. I'm joining the Foreign Legion. And they were like, well, hey, if that's your decision, great. Best of luck. And they sent me off. So I mean, this is the abridged version. A million things happened in between, but I ended up going to the UK for a little while. I stayed with a cousin. I'll call him a cousin, but a distant relative of the family, for about a month or so before I went off to France.
Okay.
and I went to Paris, and I went to Fort de Nogent. And at Fort de Nogent, I ended up joining the French Foreign Legion.
Wow, this is amazing. You know, it's I mean,
Yeah.
how did you get your minds clear? I mean, I thought about it before when I was 18, you know, but after watching the movies and watching all that stuff, I'm like, why do you want to do that? You know, it's like, no way.
Yeah, well, you're lucky you had that thought before you went there. I had that thought after I got in there.
Okay.
Why the hell do I want to do this? But, you know, it was an interesting time because, you know, it was, you know, early mid 90s, and Eastern Europe had just collapsed. So we had, you know, an influx of all these former Soviet
Yes.
Countries, you know, with their economies were destroyed. There were people in the Legion, like from Romania or Poland or wherever, that were doctors or engineers or whatever, but there was nothing for them. But if you do 5 years in the Legion, you get your French citizenship, right? So for them, it was a way out and a way for them to then bring their family over once they did it. But for me, I was just looking for a good time, right? So they were like, "What are you doing here? Is there something wrong in Canada?" I'm like, "No, Canada's pretty good, I think." What the hell are you doing here? I don't know. I really don't know. But there was a lot of you know, English speakers, a lot of people from the UK, a few American friends, a good friend of mine who may or may not watch this podcast from Sweden, South Africa, places like that,
Okay.
where they're English speaking. And I actually met an interesting guy, a Canadian there as well, who was, maybe he's about 10, 12 years older than I was. But I got a funny story about that. So I had gotten injured, and they sent me to a hospital in Toulouse, and I was there for about a week or something, and then they sent me back down to near like Castelnaudary, like that area in the south, for the south of Toulouse, to rejoin my unit who was there at the time. And I arrived after dark, and they shut everything down. Like, you're locked in. It's kind of like being in prison, right? So I had to be put in a quarantine hut overnight until they'd open the doors in the morning, right? No big deal. It's normal, right? It's like a little medical hut that's
When you're
separated
late,
by a.
that's it. Yeah.
What's that?
When you're late and everything shut down,
Yeah. It's just, you just have to wait until the morning. So it's no big deal. So I was in this medical hut, and this British medic came out, and he said, "Oh, you're Canadian." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, you got to meet my friend Popov." I'm like, "Why do I want to meet a Russian guy?" Like, here's a little bit of backstory. So the place I grew up in Canada is a Russian town, you know, I shouldn't say Russian town, a large Russian community.
Okay.
Nowadays, it's much more diluted, but my great grandfather came from Russia.
Okay.
So my grandfather, even though my grandfather was born in Canada, he had such a thick Russian accent that most people couldn't understand his English. He was a wonderful guy. But so I wasn't a very good Russian speaker.
Which region?
Because
which
Russian speaker? Like,
I mean, the region. What? Which region from Russia? You originally your family from?
Well, that's a very good question, because they were part of a religious sect called Doukhobors. It's like an offshoot of the Orthodox Church. Okay. And basically what happened to them is they were pacifists. They decided they weren't going to fight in any more wars. So they refused to fight in a war with Turkey. I think it was with Turkey. They were always fighting with Turkey back then. But the Tsar said, "Well, if you're not going to fight, we're going to banish you." So they were persecuted. They went all over. In fact, my great-grandfather spoke Georgian because they lived in Georgia for a while. They were in, well, what's now Ukraine. They were all over. And something very interesting happened. We all know the author, Leo Tolstoy, yeah? So he wrote a book called Voskresenia, and it's like Resurrection is the English name. And he donated the proceeds of that book to petition the Tsar to allow the Doukhobors to leave Russia. And the Tsar agreed. He said, on one condition, you never return. So they all got on boats, and most of them went to Canada, maybe some went to the United States, other places. So that's how they came to Canada. So as a kid, I could read Russian. no problem. And I had a little bit of Russian, even though we didn't speak it at home. I took a couple years in school when I was like grade 3 or 4, but it was familiar enough that it was, there is the base, the foundation was there. But anyways, I could speak a little bit, but not much. But I was thinking, why do I want to meet this Popoff guy?
Okay.
And anyways, this guy comes out, Popoff, and where I grew up, you open the phone book and there's 3 pages of Popoffs, right? Like it's such a common name. It's like, that's weird. Anyways, he's a Canadian. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And he said, yeah, where are you from? I said, oh, just this little tiny small town in British Columbia, Canada. He goes, oh yeah, I'm from British Columbia too. What town? I said, oh, it's this little tiny place. You'll never know it. It's near a city called Castlegar. He goes, I grew up near Castlegar too. I grew up in Blueberry Creek. I grew up in Blueberry Creek. Like 300 people live there. And I'm in France and I meet this guy in the Foreign Legion.
You knew him before or not?
No, his family still lives there. What are the odds? Like 1 in a billion, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But anyways, that was kind of the beginning of the end of the French Foreign Legion for me, because Popoff, he was a legionnaire,
okay.
But he used to be a sergeant, and he had been in the Foreign Legion for a while, many years. I mean, you can't go to sergeant without doing at least a second term usually, but he deserted the Foreign Legion and went to fight in Croatia. The problem is he got shot, and he was literally on the side of the road, and a French Foreign Legion patrol came by, found him there, brought him back to the hospital to fix him, and then they discovered who he was. So of course they threw him in jail. I mean, it's normal in the Foreign Legion. You go to jail all the time, right? For
go to jail when you desert, or there is as well. What I heard is death sentence or things like that.
Nah, it's mostly the movies.
Not anymore, right?
Yeah, it's maybe back in the old days, but basically they jail's not fun in the Foreign Legion. Let me tell you. But they demoted him. They demoted him to a legionnaire from a sergeant. Like a legionnaire is like a private, like the first level. But the thing is he said, look, here you're not going to get the action and the adventure you want. He goes, I'm going to be out in 6 months, like around Christmas time. I'm going back to Croatia. They pay lots of money and it's like so much fun. Yeah. Sometimes people shoot at you and stuff happens, but for the most part, we're having a great time. And I was like, oh, this sounds awesome. I'm going to meet in London at Christmas. And I went back to Canada, and I met up with his sister. I didn't meet her. That's not true. My family had contacted her to let I don't know, to let her know, or just to say hi, or hey, Shane had met your brother, or like something like that. But there was contact. So when I got back shortly afterwards, I had reached out to the family, and then only discovered that he decided to desert again early, or he got leave early. Like something happened that allowed him to leave. I don't think he would have deserted with only 6 months left. But maybe he got an early release. I have no idea. The point is, he went back to Croatia, but he was killed. So I was never able to meet up with him. But I had a secondary plan before I was going to join the Foreign Legion. And part of me regrets leaving the Legion. Like there's some things about it I really liked. I mean, I like the Army in general. And I've actually since been in 3 separate armies in my life. There's something about the discipline and structure that I really enjoy, and the chance for adventure. But when I was joining the Foreign Legion, you had to go through, I don't know, let's say maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at most, of like a training selection process. You write tests, you do physical exams, blah, blah, blah. A lot of stuff happens. They do a background check on you, those types of things, right? Because contrary to popular belief, if I was a wanted murderer or something, they're usually not going to take you. In the old days, yeah, they would. They change your name, they change everything. They still do that for the most part, so you can't be found. But they've got so many people now trying to get in. They don't need to accept those types of people, right? So they're taking a higher quality. Anyways, my point was that I thought, well, hey, my Russian's not great, but it's okay. CSIS turned me down. I'll join the KGB. Like, that's what I'll do. So it's really interesting though, because I met some really cool Russian guys and a really nice Polish guy. And I was telling them, I said, well, hey, if we don't get, and we're in this training session together, I said, well, if I don't get out, maybe I'll go to Russia and join the KGB. And they said, well, that might have been a good idea a few years ago, but right now, like the Soviet Union had collapsed, right? They said they're more likely just to shoot you than anything else because nobody trusts anybody. It was in total chaos, and the KGB wasn't even sure what their place was. Of course, that's now changed, to the new agency they have, but it was in a big flux. And I was like, oh, geez, I didn't really think about that. And they were like, no, just stay here. Don't go there. So it's kind of funny. I was almost a spy a couple of times, but never quite got there. Now I just spy on my kids when they're doing bad stuff. But,
this was about 1995, 96, because of the Soviet Union collapsed in 89. Because I still remember I was small. I was we were in West Germany, and East Germany was still on. So I really seen the wall, and I know about all of this Cold War between these countries. And after the collapse, obviously everything went completely upside down, and it was destruction for all the Eastern countries. So up to the same level as everything else. It's really So I think
and the other interesting thing too is there's a lot of hard feelings, especially, and it's funny because now I would count among my best friends in the world is a handful of Romanians. I love Romania. I know there's probably jerks there and bad people, of course. I just haven't met any yet. I love those people so much. I love my time in Romania, and they're my best friends. That being said, in the Foreign Legion, actually, I met a couple of really great Romanian guys there as well. But the funny thing is the Romanians hated the Russians and the Poles hated these people. They were constantly at each other's throats. It was nasty, really, really nasty. A lot of hard feelings after the fall. So, and I can't blame them, like they all have their own stories, and I'm not, saying who's right or wrong or anything, but it was a tough time. Like the Foreign Legion is a hard place to be. You got to be prepared to get beaten up lots. You're going to get hurt lots. You got to really, it's kind of like being in prison. You've got to hold your own ground. And that was a situation I wasn't quite prepared for. I was expecting more of a professional army. Yeah. And they are professional in many ways, but there's so much, at least at that time, there's so much hatred inner. It's hard to imagine how you could have acted as a cohesive unit if the shit hit the fan, because everybody had these hard feelings. So it was interesting. But the funny thing about the Foreign Legion is that it sort of reflects the political landscape of the world, because it'll accept anyone. Like what it looked like in the 50s was remarkably different than what it looked like in the 70s and the 2000s. And, I don't want to go too crazy on this, but one day I was going to be punished. So I had a choice. I could either go to prison for the weekend, or I could go work in a labor camp. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll go work in a labor camp. It wasn't really a labor camp. They sent me to the south of France, where there's a retirement home for Legionnaires, right? So if you do your 5 years in the Foreign Legion or more, you can basically go there at any time, and it's self-sufficient. They've got ducks and chickens, and that's where the vineyards are for the Legion, for their own wine and stuff like that. And they make you do stupid stuff like army stuff, like okay, go break rocks for 3 hours in the sun, or just army stuff, right? Whatever. So you're doing that. But at night, we would have dinner in the home with all these retired guys, and a lot of them were really neat dudes. Well, the funny thing is a lot of these guys were German. And these were the guys who were SS, different German guys from World War II, who at the end of the war, France took them in. You'll never hear them admit that. France took them in. And they're the people who went to like Dien Bien Phu, like in French Indochina, and fought in those wars. It wasn't mostly French people. It was Germans, other people from all around the world who joined the Foreign Legion. I mean, you can go to the Foreign Legion, you can find, practically every African, every Asian nation, like literally someone from everywhere. So it's kind of a really neat place. And it's a special place. And I remember when I came back to Canada, I was still having a little bit of a limp from an injury I'd had, and someone, I didn't talk much about it. Sometimes I'm not sure I should even say as much as I've said, honestly. Maybe it's not my place, but like, I have no resentment or hard feelings. It is what it is. And I'm kind of glad it exists. And I remember someone saying to me, this woman saying, "Oh my gosh, you need to report this to the authorities," or some ridiculous thing. I was like, why? Like, do you want these people, these animals, half of them, running around on the streets? No, at least they're there. They're disciplined, they're controlled, they have a useful purpose in life. Like, the Legion is a good thing, from you on the outside. It's a good thing. Because some of the idiots I met there, I wonder what they would be like in real life society.
I know some of them. It's good that they have a purpose, as you say. That they, structure, disciplined. It's all good, because some people cannot take it to have free time, even more free than what we have. What we have during the day, because although we don't go to work or something, I still get up 5-6 o'clock. So I mean, it's most of the people cannot handle it, and especially people who have I would call psychological problems.
100%.
The upbringing and everything. Then the structure is perfect for them, and if they don't get the structure, they tilt. So yeah, you're right.
That's right. They'll probably be in jail or doing things. No, and hey, I don't mean to, like, there's a lot of really great people in the French Foreign Legion, and they are a professional army. At that time, there was a lot of chaos, and what do you expect? And I do think too, they do a lot more testing, like they do psychological evaluations and stuff now. So I think the caliber of people there is a lot different. I think those people that, especially back, like you watch old films like Beau Geste or, whatever, right? And, that romantic notion is gone. That doesn't exist anymore. They're not going to accept a murderer or something. They wouldn't want that, that hassle, I don't think. Why would they, when they can take someone who's way more qualified, right?
Okay, because I heard this as well. I didn't know that it changed, but always learning. Always.
Actually, I don't know if you know, but Spain has a Foreign Legion too. At least they used to. It's not very well known. It's much smaller, but there's a Spanish Foreign Legion too. Yeah.
I didn't know about that. I knew France is that's the most famous. Most famous.
Yeah. The Kepi Blanc, and it is very famous, isn't it? And they have a special march. They do a slow march and they sing their songs. It's cool. Like, again, I've got nothing against it, man. If I was a young man, would I do it again? Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe, but I'm old now, so I don't do it.
It's not really old. It's experience. Let's say
experience. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. When you go to use golf balls, the golf course, they don't call them used balls; they call them experienced golf.
They get some today. Very good.
Yeah, I think they do that at Mercedes dealerships too. At least when I was in Canada, they call them experienced cars. Like, dude, why don't you just whatever, just call it whatever you want. Language.
Great. So then after the Legion, you moved back to Canada, right?
Yeah, I did. And, my hopes were dashed about going to Croatia, which was good. I mean,
Croatia, that's Croatia at this time, I still remember, as you said, the whole situation was as well not very good. All the countries, they were up to today, unfortunately, there are still some feelings, so I think this was as well maybe a good decision, because like you said, everyone's shooting, nobody knows which group is against who, nobody knows where this is coming from. So maybe it was a good decision,
I think so, 100%. And it's funny because one of my really good friends now is Serbian, him and his wife. And I was like, boy, am I glad I didn't come here. I didn't want to have to shoot you all those years ago. and we have a good laugh over it. But I'm glad we can laugh over those types of things. But yeah, you're right. There's still, I mean, war is not a cool thing, and lots of nasty things happen in that area of the world.
You can still feel it here. I mean, when I grew up, you can still feel it. Even the kids from the ones who came from the war, Croatian, Serbian, from Bosnian, they all, you know, they all kind of were fighting even together, even though they don't even know why, you know.
That's right. Yeah, just because they're told to. Yeah, you need to hate those people over there. There's not a really good reason. Yeah. It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's ridiculous. Yeah. But yeah,
I hope this is going away little by little, you know, because it's you know, it's really lots of time and lots of effort, you know.
Yeah, I have a solution. I have a solution which will cause all you know, religious strife, ethnic strife, all to go away overnight. What we need is we just need aliens to show up. They don't even have to come here. They just need to be parked up there and be like, oh my gosh, hey man, you're my brother, right? Like we're good. Okay, all right. That's what we need.
Something really something really impactful happening, you know. COVID, I think, was not like the boom, you know. It was in the beginning, it was, so everyone just forgot about everything at the moment, but then everything came back again. But I think you're right, you know, it needs to be something which completely breaks everyone down, you know.
That's right. What they should do is even if it's a hoax, you know, stealthily launch something up there and say, we don't know what it is. And like, you know, just to bring everyone together. I mean, I don't know. Anyways, back to reality though. So I went back to Canada. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I ended up joining the Canadian Army, like the reserve. So I wasn't full-time. That was good. It gave me something to do, you know, got to shoot some guns, like just kind of, you know, just in Canada, just, you know, being a soldier stuff. Canada's, you know, very small military, but they're highly professional because they don't have the equipment like, you know, like the Americans have or something. Like, you know, we'd go training in the States sometimes. It would just be like your mouth would be open, like, and how much money they would have and equipment and stuff.
Was kind of a cool down for you. So from all the war zones and everything, it's like a cool down.
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't intense, but the great thing about the Canadian Army is that they're very professional soldiers. So a Canadian soldier, you know, he can fix his service weapon, he can fix the anti-tank weapon, he can fix the radio, he can, or she can do. In the Foreign Legion, it's only men. There's no women allowed. But in the Canadian military, of course, they have women. So, but it's very professional that way. And that's kind of neat. It was just nice to kind of be home. And it was just something for me to do for a while until I got my head straight, you know, because you come out of high stress situations and you need some decompression time. And that was nice. I ended up getting interested. I had a little small business I had for a while, which was a total disaster. But it was good. It was good that I failed at it because I learned a few things, and I got interested in finance, and not finance so much as stocks, bonds, options, that type of thing, derivatives. So I started studying through an institute in Canada to get my, it's called the securities license, right? So you can trade these things and work in that industry. So I really just hyper-focused on that, loved it, got all that qualifications. And then I ended up working as an options trader for a company called TD Waterhouse. And that was really cool. You know, there's a lot. Yeah, it was really cool. I was just basically handling order flow. So I wasn't trading my own money. I wasn't, you know, like the Wolf of Wall Street or anything like that. I was just handling order flow. But then an opportunity came up for something called proprietary trading. And proprietary trading is when you trade, you know, money for a company to, you know, to the goal is to make profit, and you keep a percentage. And that was fantastic. Like I worked there from maybe 2001 maybe, to about 2003, 2004, before I started my own little company. But, you know, I had never made so much money in my life. You know, I grew up in we weren't rich by any means. We were very modest. So for me, I think the first year of trading, I think I made $100,000, and I was just like, "Oh, this is the best thing ever!" Like to me, that was I'd made it, and that was really cool because I excelled in doing something unique that few other people could do, and it would reward me for it. And that was my whole thing. I just wanted to do something unique. I didn't want to be run of the mill. And trading was really cool and really unique. Once we started our own little company, I went in with a couple of partners. That was good for a while, but it quickly went downhill. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is we were trading our own money. And there's a psychological disadvantage to that with most people. I didn't think it would bother me, but it did. Second of all, something called high frequency trading machines came out. And these are basically just algorithms that trade. So I was what we call a technical analyst, where I was really good at identifying patterns and charts, and I'd read charts, and you'd see the psychological barriers, and you'd trade within those confines. High frequency trading machines don't care about psychological barriers. They'll stop buying when the buy program runs out, period. Like not a second before, not a second later. And you would charts would get all messed up, and it was just stupid. And I still kick myself for not adapting, because at that time I could have easily, partnered up with someone at MIT or a bigger university and started writing these programs and been a gazillionaire. But because a lot of what they're doing is technically illegal on the markets, I thought, it's only a matter of time before the markets get cleaned up again. Yeah, right. There's more honor in dealing crack on the street corner than there is in the financial markets. And it'll never be cleaned up. So, but it just got worse and worse. I'd have good months, I'd have bad months, I'd have flat months. But at the end of the year, I wasn't making practically anything. I was really tough to survive. It destroyed my marriage. It destroyed my life. And a lot of it was my own damn fault, because I was too stubborn to let go. Okay. I think that's a big life lesson. I think I've changed a lot since then, but it took me to lose everything before I could learn to rebuild, like I had to hit bottom. Yeah. So what I did was I didn't know what to do. So I called up my friend in Sweden from the French Foreign Legion. And I said, "Hey man, I don't know what to do. I'm in a bad situation." He goes, "Well, just come and live with us." So I went to Sweden and lived with him for 6 months. And, he didn't need to do that. Well, maybe it wasn't 6 months. Maybe it was like 3 or 4 months. And then I went off somewhere else, and I came back and stayed for another month or two. But, he's got his family and things going on. Like, he didn't need me, but it was so kind of him and so generous. But it was only because of that experience we had together. And when I was living in Sweden, it was, again, decompressing and trying to understand how my life was shattered. No, I was still trading. I was trading my own account at this time. And I'd have some decent months and I'd have some crap months, but I was making enough just to get by. And I had this fantasy that I wanted to ride a motorcycle to Lake Baikal. You know where Lake Baikal is?
No.
It's like Eastern Russia.
Okay.
It's the largest freshwater lake in the world. Like 25% of the world's water is in this lake. It's so unique. It's got its own climate. It's got its own animals. It has seals, freshwater seals. It's the only place in the world. They're called Nerpa. Yeah, anyways. So I had this idea.
Eastern Russia
in Russia.
It's like
way east, like
Kazakhstan, China, up to China, yeah? Somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, about 3/4 of the way to Vladivostok. But so I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to Ukraine, and I'm going to buy a motorcycle there. They have these motorcycles they used to make there called the Dnieper, kind of like an Ural with a like 2-wheel drive sidecar. They hadn't made them since the early 80s. It's such a stupid idea. So anyways, I go to Ukraine, and but I started to meet lots of Ukrainian people who I really liked. Like, I really enjoyed hanging out in Ukrainian people. And of course, I'm just going to throw this out there. The women aren't hard to look at. I'm just going to say that, and I'll leave it at that. So I was enjoying myself in Ukraine and making lots of good friends. And I found a couple of these motorcycles, but they were like literally out in some village somewhere, rusted out, broken. Like, I probably wouldn't have made it 20 kilometers, never mind, quarter way around the world. So that idea went out the window, and I started to do work with Sistema, the Russian martial arts, right? So there's a guy who I think he actually lives in the Canary Islands now, but Ukrainian guy who was the president of the Ukrainian Federation of Russian Martial Arts. Wonderful guy, really enjoyed him, and he took me under his wing, and we'd go to Crimea and train in the summer, and we were living in Kiev at the time. And he said, he goes, it's a good idea you didn't take that motorcycle across to Russia, Shane. I said, why? He goes, I don't know how to tell you this, but I got to be honest with you. Your Russian's not that good. And he goes, you're going to drive to the border. The police are going to radio to their friends, 10 kilometers inland, let them know you're coming. They're going to take everything from you. If you make it a few days in, you'll be at a hotel. You'll come up in the morning. The wheels will be gone on your motorcycle. It's just not going to work out, because you need someone to come with you. Like, if you really want to go, I'll go with you. I'll drive my truck. I was like, well, that was really kind of him to offer. I don't know if he really meant it, but he was probably right. And he saved me from probably a worse adventure.
But a mistake, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But when I was there in Ukraine, I decided to go to Georgia, because the Russians had invaded Georgia. And so I went there and I joined the Georgian army.
Okay. Wow.
Even though I don't speak one word of Georgian. I showed up and they said, hey, just hang out with us for a little while. So I hung out with them in the mountains in this Tusheti region of Georgia. But the war was pretty much over at that time. Like, the Russians were still there, but they were actually all moving back. So we were on the mountaintops watching their columns of tanks and stuff and equipment moving back. So nothing much happened there. And then I went back to Ukraine, stayed there for a while, went back to Sweden for a bit. And then I went back and forth to Ukraine over the next few years regularly. So I spent about half my time in Ukraine, half my time in Canada. And then eventually I met my wife in Ukraine, and she immigrated to Canada, and we lived there for about 5 or 6 years on the West Coast. She's a Canadian citizen now. She became a Canadian citizen. And then we decided to pick up, and because I get pretty bored pretty quick, and let's move to Europe. So we had a daughter at the time. She was 2. And we were actually going to move to Taiwan, but that didn't work out. And we decided to come to Andorra, and because Andorra is very similar to where I grew up in BC, mountains and skiing, and it's but Andorra's tiny, right? It's the 17th smallest country in the world, coming from the 2nd largest country in the world. So it's a bit of an adjustment, and of course I don't speak the languages here, but that's part of the adventure. You learn those things and you do those things. And we showed up, and people asked me, like, well, have you ever been to Andorra? I'm like, nope. We just showed up with like six suitcases and a kid. Said, okay, where are we going to stay? I didn't know if I could get residency. Didn't know anything about just adventure, right? So we've been here for 2.5 years now. I actually don't plan on leaving. I like it here. And I think the reason why I like it here is, well, number one, my daughter goes to school here. And now we have a young son too, who's a year and a half old. But it's the safest country in the world. There's low tax, mountains, fresh air, but it's so central to everything. Like it's a 2.5-hour drive to Barcelona. For me, if I'm coming from Canada, that's like going to the store to get milk. We're driving for 2 hours, no big deal, right? So for us, or Toulouse is just maybe 3.5 hours away. Like it's not like it's centralized. So, and as you know, Europe is so compact, and so many cultures and so many things all within close range of each other. And when we can fly, it's all short flights. So it feels like even though it's quite, I don't want to say boring, but tranquil here. It's very, very tranquil. There's no crime here. It's a wonderful place to raise kids. I still feel like I'm so close to the action. I can drive 20 minutes, be across the border in Spain. And Spain is an incredible country on its own. It's got all these different regions and dialects. And I can't wait to explore just more of Spain, never mind all of Europe. So it's a really neat place to be. I'd love to pop over to Africa. I've never been to places like Morocco or Algeria. I've always been interested in things like that. Or Israel or Turkey or family in Ukraine. It's all so close now. It doesn't,
by the way,
flying.
it's an hour plane ride from Andorra, North Africa.
Yeah. And flying from Canada is so expensive. Like, it's ridiculous, especially if you're going to fly with like 5 people or 4 adults and kids. Like, holy crap, it's like 10 grand, right?
Yep.
So it's just I'm looking forward to, as they grow up, and just exploring, just getting in the car or taking a flight or whatever.
That's that's a great story, because as you know, I'm as well in Europe, or I'm back in Europe. But Europe is like you said, is very diversified. You can fly anywhere in 1 hour, off COVID times, obviously. Right now I would recommend to drive with the car. So yeah. So, so yeah, that's amazing. So, and how did you go from there to the PR firm, PR Reach? Because this is now we're in a whole other sector. It's I mean, the internet is the best, obviously, because it's like that. We all got together and we all learn new things and we all get to build our companies. But it's always good to understand how this happened. I mean, you're in Andorra and then suddenly you have such a company coming up basically out of nowhere. I mean, obviously it's not out of nowhere, but for people who see from outside.
Yeah. So I continued to trade up until like my own account. And it got lighter and lighter as I got deeper into the 2000s. So by the time I got to about 2012, I wasn't really trading too much anymore, and I had to get real jobs. So I didn't know what the heck to do. And when I actually was in Canada by myself for a while I was waiting for my wife to be able to get to be able to emigrate. Yeah. So I was kind of waiting for her. So I had nothing to do. So I took some kind of crappier jobs. And then eventually I got a job as the assistant manager of a bank, which is literally the worst job I'd ever have. I would go to war again before I'd work in a bank.
I can imagine.
Like no kidding. Like it was, I hated every second of it. I'm just not designed for it. I might as well be in prison. So anyways, I didn't like that. I only worked there for about 6 months. And then I got a second job. And this is the last job I had before moving. So I was just waiting for my opportunity. I knew I was going to do great things. I was just biding my time. I got a job at a civilian military base, civilian and military. It was a joint base as a security manager for like the passenger screening for flights, as a manager of the station. And that was okay. It was okay. But that's when I discovered the Amazon opportunity. And that must have been around 2012, 13, right around there.
Gold rush.
Yeah, that was that first sort of wave of the PL, and there was no information available. So my brother was a co-founder of the Amazing Selling Machine, right? And he'd always been into like internet stuff, and I never was. And I saw his first iteration of this course came out, and I thought, oh man, that looks stupid, spammy, and so dumb. But then I saw him come up with the next one, so I followed him up. I'm like, what's going on with this whole amazing Amazon thing? He goes, and when your little brother says this to you, and he says, if you don't get involved in the Amazon business right now, you're an effing idiot. I'm like, okay, fine. Show me what to do. So give me some course materials to understand what he goes, look, I don't have any time to help you. You just got to figure out your own. Good luck. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll do this. Like I had no doubt from the moment I started that I'd be incredibly successful at. No doubt that like the failure wasn't even an option. So I worked at that job I had, and I worked on my business during the evenings, weekends, whatever. And 7-8 months later, something like that, I quit my job, away I went, and the rest was history. So as the Amazing Selling Machine, which turned out to be the most successful online business ever, I think, for that type of business. Now they're just called amazing.com. But they asked me to help and mentor, new students. I was like, yeah, sure. I was sharing and helping people out. And then eventually they asked me if I wanted to create their course for them, which I did for 2 years for ASM 5, 6. I think they're up to ASM 12 or 13 now. I don't even know. I'm not involved in anything they're doing anymore, but yeah, that's how it got started. And, since then there's been lots of different brands. And, as you know, the Amazon opportunity isn't just selling on Amazon. There's people who write software, support. There's coaching, mentoring. There's accounting services, graphic design. There's blah, blah, blah. There's so many aspects to supporting that industry. So that's really quite neat to see that. And that's what I got involved in. And now I'd used press releases as part of my marketing efforts since about 2014. And my partner, Norm, who bought the company a few years back, or two years back now, from a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Rob Burns, he had it for a few months, realized it was just, too much just on his own. So he asked me to partner with him. I was like, yeah, sure. So we bought this company called PR Reach. It was the world's first video press release company. And that's all it did was just these video press releases. So we started to expand. Then we started to do regular press releases, add in different types of press releases. Then we got into our specialized Amazon launch methods using press releases and external traffic. Then we brought in our rebate system. We started doing content. Now we're doing SEO, like an SEO kind of hack shortcut thing. We do Amazon editorial recommendations. We do offsite articles. We do public relations. We do earned media. We're doing all this stuff to support brands. Now our thing is about being a vertically integrated media PR company. So whether you just sell on Amazon, whether you only sell on Shopify or Walmart, or you're selling both, or you want to expand onto Walmart or physical retail, you want to be in Costco stores or whatever you want. We help companies build their brands so they're not solely dependent on Amazon. And normally we do that by making sure their Amazon business is running really well and making good money, because I'm not saying to leave Amazon. Like everyone, I think in that space, we've got a love-hate relationship with Amazon because they're so big, it's hard not to. But, you want to leverage Amazon as much as you can, but you need to start building your own business away from Amazon, building your own list and your own brand. Because Amazon can shut you down tomorrow, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. You don't have the customer data, you don't have anything. It's not your business, it's Amazon's business. So it's a great place to start, and you can stay there and milk it for all it's worth. But as you're expanding, build your own empire. You need to do that. And that's, and once you build a brand too, there's so many advantages. I mean, you can sell your company for a lot more when you go to sell it. If you do, you can charge higher prices. You'll have higher conversion rates. You'll have a big list. So every time you launch a new product, it's way easier. There's just, you start to get so much social proof. There's just so much benefit to building a brand, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while to do.
Exactly. It's this, I call it a little investment, because I personally used your services, and the outcome for us, what we have seen, is amazing, because suddenly your whole name is all over the internet. Obviously it's a big effort what you're doing in the back, what we don't see, but this is the beauty of it. And it's not only for Amazon brands, it's as well for off Amazon, like us, a consulting company. Everyone related to Amazon can use it, even not related. And this is the thing, because we as a consulting firm, sometimes we are completely overwhelmed with our clients. So we cannot even hire, for example, somebody who's doing the SEO, or if we hire somebody who's doing the SEO, he might not do it correctly, because you can see the impact only a few months down the line. So a few months down the line, you realize that you paid somebody who maybe did something but had no impact. So for you, I'm saying this because we did this before. We hired people, we tried a lot of things, and with you is really the first time with the PR Reach that we really seen us coming up in the search engines. For real. And afterwards, we do as well work behind it, but your work really facilitate everything what we do in the back. So yeah, it's as well for me was an amazing opportunity to work with you as well.
Yeah, very cool. And we've got some new things in the pipeline, which I think are going to just accelerate the performance even more. Like the brand builder product that we have, which is the SEO shortcut. We're going to be integrating. We've already started social signals and like Quora and things like that to try and get ranking, but we've got some amazing Google things happening. So yeah, just upwards and onwards. And we're just trying to stay innovative. We're just trying to think outside the box and not do what everyone else is doing. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with those things, and maybe some of those things you should be doing, but to try and get that competitive advantage. And there's ways to do it. It just doesn't always happen overnight, right? It just takes a bit of time, but you can get there.
That's for sure, especially for SEO. And I think now it's the time, because now, because at the moment we see the impact from COVID. It's already got harder because everyone who had a little bit of how can I say it? I would like everyone who knew this, who has seen this coming, has switched, and hired companies to do the SEO. Maybe not PR reach, but there is it's maybe as I did the SEO guys, and then realized it didn't work. But everyone now the competition got harder for everyone, because everyone is now online, and from now on it will even get harder because who knows how long this will take? Who knows what comes behind all of this stuff? So our presence in the internet is our so-called card. When we meet somebody, we give it to them. That's it. Now we have the stamp in the internet. We have to be our name get written into Google. We need to come up. Our company name needs to get in. Are we flagged for something? All of this needs to be now 100%. I mean, that's why for me it's super important, and it will only grow bigger. And then we come as well to the next question that I have for you. What would you suggest, to somebody who's starting out, coming from a background of a brick and mortar, for example, shop or a consulting or something, what goes into the internet? What would be your suggestion? What can they do? How can they boost their business? And where do you think these people will evaluate in the future from now to 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think if you're just getting started in the online space, it depends what you're doing. If you've got a service-based business or something, that's a bit different than if you start a physical product business like most Amazon sellers do. I think that for physical products, while I do know people who do it the opposite way, Amazon is still a great place to start. It's in a box. The platform's there. It's not overly difficult. It's become more complicated over the years, but it's still not overly difficult to do. The traffic is there. You just need to grab a piece of it. And much like when you look at businesses and their Google presence, I'm going to say at least 90%, if not more, of businesses don't have a clue or do it wrong. So that's still a great advantage. If you can do things right, you're going to have an advantage. But starting on Amazon is still a good place to go, and build a certain amount of foundation there, whether that's 10,000 a month in revenue, 50,000, 100,000, whatever that happens to be for you and how aggressive you are. And then start to slowly, or I would start right away to slowly, like press releases are a great example because they're inexpensive. They're going to slowly build your offsite authority, a little bit of SEO over time. But then when you're really ready to move off that platform, that's when you ramp it up to other services that are basically getting you published in different places, not just press releases, but content or articles, magazines, websites, influencers. And that's what we do on the PR earned media side, right? So for instance, if you came to me and you're like, oh, Shane, I would want to use your services for PR. Well, we would build you a media list that would be appropriate for whatever you're doing. Maybe you've got a great story of how you came to this position and what your business does for people, or how it helps people, or you're helping charity, or whatever your angle is. And we would pitch that. So, if you had a dream that, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, CEO in Forbes magazine, well, that's what we would start to work on. And if you want to be in the physical magazine, you have to understand that they're, at least 6 months out with their publication schedule. So if you started with me now, maybe we could get you in there by summer. So in the meantime, we'd start to knock off smaller placements every single month and build that momentum as we're pitching your business to different places. So that's what we do there. And that's how you build that massive authority. And a lot of these, of course, can drive a ton of traffic. So, you've got a physical product seller and they sell a lawn and garden product, for example. And it's their dream to be in Martha Stewart magazine or something. Okay. I mean, we have contacts at literally every major media outlet in North America. We put people on television, radio, podcasts, like Good Morning America, USA Today, you name it. We put people there, but it has to be appropriate. We have to design that voice for you. But people have to understand that, again, if you want to be in that magazine, it's not going to happen tomorrow. They've got their print schedule, they've got their whole thing. We have to get your story in there. So 6 months out, but even some websites are on like a 3-month schedule. We can't even get you there for 3 months. We do get opportunities that pop up with big publications because our PR manager has been in the business for 20 something years. We'll get a call and say, oh my gosh, we had someone drop out or this business went under, or do you have anything that fits this for us? And we'll go through our client list and pull someone out. But that's how we do is we build that momentum, that outside authority. So, you'll find that in the case of a physical product seller, for example, a lot of your business will probably come more from Google, just from Google search, whether they're going to Amazon to buy that product, whether they're going to your Shopify store, or if you've got a service-based business consulting, that's what we're going to start to do, is try to build up that heavy authority. Because the other thing too is, because we have a PR firm, let's just say we got you published in Forbes magazine, just for an example. Well, that link never goes away. It's not like paid advertising. You stop paying, it goes away. It's going to stay there forever. So what are we going to do? We're going to milk it for everything it's worth. We're going to, you should be posting it in your social media, in your newsletter, your emails, or as seen on your website, social media, advertising campaigns, blog about it and link to it. We'll do press releases and link to it. We'll give that as much due, because that's some high authority of juice there, right? So we'll just keep milking that. And over time, you'll get more and more and more and more placements. There'll be tons and tons of fodder for social media, for every outlet you have for your business, for exposure. So it's not just like, oh, I got a Forbes article and then it goes away and you forget about it. Now you got a Forbes article, let's milk it for the next 3 months. That makes sense.
Sounds amazing, because it's something on its own, It's not that you just like before, they put the links out there. It was, back in 2010, 2012. People put the links out there. This is now a sophisticated system network, which is really big. I mean,
yeah, and the only reason we can do this is because we went out and we hired PR people that have 20 plus years in experience. It's all, and there's no, I can't sugarcoat this in any other way. We hired for the Rolodex, because it's about who you know. You spend 20 plus years in a business, you get to know everyone, and that's what we hired. You could hire someone right out of PR school. Not going to help very much. Not going to get any. They'll write beautiful letters, I'm sure, and emails, and you might get the odd placement a couple times a year. I don't know, but we guarantee placements every single month, depending on the package level you're at. So we can only do that because we have such extensive contacts. And the funny thing is that no Amazon sellers do this. None, zero, maybe a fraction of 1%. Yeah. So we're really the only business right now, and we're just really starting to introduce it to the Amazon world and say, look, you guys need to get off of Amazon, or not get off, but diversify away from Amazon. So you're not sitting on a one-legged stool. You get shut down tomorrow, or a competitor attack, or whatever happens. If you've got employees and you need that income, you're screwed. Like, it's crazy to be dependent, because it's not your business anyways. You need to build your own business, and that just takes time. So here we have steps to do that, and we want to help people build their own brand.
That's great. Thank you, Shane. PR Reach, the PR firm to go to, really.
No problem.
Thank you so much for having joined us today. Yeah, it was a great talk with all this story. It feels like we've done a world tour,
That's right. Well, next time, if we can meet in person and have a beer or coffee, we'll get into the really nitty gritty of the story that I can't mention.
Let's do that. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shane.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.